Buona giornata, paisanos! It's a me, Corey, and it's time for anime to get bizarre once again, because the 5th arc in the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure anime series is about to begin. Welcome to my review of the very first episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Golden Wind. Incredibly manly, super flamboyant, and ultra-violent, it must be the return of the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure anime franchise. And here we are finally at the 5th major arc of the series, which goes by the name of Golden Wind. I'm gonna go ahead and put up a spoiler warning right here. If you guys have not watched the very first episode of Golden Wind, go watch it right now, then come back to this review. Before I go any further, let me just go ahead and say that I fucking love JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It's one of my favorite anime franchises of all time. Stardust Crusaders in particular I hold in a very high regard, and I love it so much that it might be in my top 10 favorite anime of all time. And I'm not speaking ill of the first 2 parts of JoJo or even Diamond is Unbreakable. I really do believe that JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is easily one of the most unique anime series that I have ever seen. It's also one of the most unpredictable, and the first episode right here is incredibly entertaining. Now, first things first, if you're just deciding to get into the JoJo franchise, this is probably not the anime series to do that. It's basically a straight continuation of the 2 last major arcs of the series. In fact, I would say that Golden Wind is sort of a perfect combination of Stardust Crusaders and Diamond is Unbreakable, and yet it's still managing to do something incredibly different, and a lot of that is owed to the setting of this series, which is going to be in Naples, Italy, and it's going to deal with a bunch of gangs and mafiosos, and we're even going to get to see the return of classic characters like Jotaro, one of the most badass heroes of all time, and believe it or not, a big surprise, we're going to see Koichi return from Diamond is Unbreakable. I almost felt that we were going to end up seeing Josuke again, but he probably cares more about his hair and doesn't want to get involved in any more of these stand shenanigans. What I will say is the very first episode did a very great job of introducing us to this incredibly ridiculous setting that is Naples, Italy. They're basically taking the entire concept of everything that is stereotypical about Italy, combining it with the whole mafioso-style way of telling stories, and injecting that weird, just utter ridiculousness that is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and it makes for a fantastic first episode. So what's the story with Golden Wind? Well, it actually all opens up with Koichi actually going to Italy. He was sent there by Jotaro and the Speedwagon Foundation to try and find this Japanese student by the name of Haruno Shiobana, and this character is very important because he very well might be the son of Dio. Yes, that Dio. You know the one I'm talking about. Yes, it was me, Dio. Zawarudo! Yeah, somehow in his time as being a vampire, he managed to get busy and even ended up having a son that he probably didn't even know about, and considering that this character was originally Japanese, I'm guessing that she managed to escape from Dio pregnant and managed to whisk her son away. Now, maybe this was a part of Dio's plan to actually have some offspring. It doesn't seem like something that he would do, as Dio is something of a super selfish individual who only cares about number 1. That being said, Dio looks like he has a son, and unlike Dio, it doesn't look like he's actually going to be a bad guy. In fact, he's going to be the main character of this series, and our character is going to go by the name of Giorno Giovanna, and in many ways he kind of reminds me of like a thief with honor, a Lupin the Third-esque character, if you will, except that like a lot of the other characters in the series, he's imbued with fantastical abilities, such as the ability to use stands, which can be pretty much anything they want. And what I especially love about his character is how his stand is completely different than the previous ones that we've seen in the series. Initially, when JoJo started out, the main powers just involved punching the shit out of things really fast. And that's really fun to see, but I love how in Diamond is Unbreakable, they started to shake things up ability with these unique abilities, such as Josuke being able to reverse things and heal people's wounds. And now we have Giorno, who is able to use his stand to basically transform any inanimate object into a living creature. And that's not the only ability. Whenever that living creature or one of his abilities is actually attacked by another person, that damage actually ends up going back to them. So a lot of his fighting strategy is going to have to involve just that. Really good strategy. And the way that they have it on display in this very first episode is just all sorts of awesome. So let's just get back to the beginning of the story. It actually does a pretty good job of actually introducing Giorno and what type of character that he's actually going to be. What's going to make him different than the previous JoJo's that we've actually seen from the series, outside of being the frickin' spawn of Dio, the evil vampire? Well, initially they try to make him seem like he's sort of like an Italian version of Josuke. He's a smooth talker, he's real popular with the ladies, and he seems to be just sort of your run-of-the-mill main character hero. In fact, he even helps out a couple of girls who ends up having their money stolen from this guy who steals their wallet. He takes the wallet back, returns it to them, when suddenly these two little butterflies just sort of fly out of this girl's bag, and this actually ends up being the money that was in her purse. He stole the money, but at the same time, he still managed to give the wallet back. Basically, Giorno is something of a budding thief and maybe a wannabe gangster. A gangster with a heart of gold. And lucky for him, he lives in Italy, and everybody has deep pockets, and they're all lined with a lot of money, and that's because they have to pay off the mob. Or the police, who are working for the mob. That's something that they firmly establish in this episode, that Naples is basically run by all of these gangs and crime families, and they're always looking for some sort of tribute. Any bit of money that they can actually manage to squeeze out of anyone. And Giorno actually ends up running afoul of one of these hitmen, these guys who are there to basically pick up the bag of money, so to speak. The Bagman. And that's where we're introduced to a ridiculous character that can only exist within a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure anime series, and that's Leaky-Eyed Luca. What I love about this character initially is I love that they're going to be playing with the fact that all of these Italian gangsters always have ridiculous and funny nicknames. Frankie No-Nos, Jimmy Two Times, Johnny Tight Lips. I expect to see more of this throughout the series, and it just puts a big smile on my face. But Leaky-Eyed Luca is already an immediately great character. He gets the name because he's constantly crying from his right eye, and that's because apparently he was stabbed in the face, and it made it so his eye is continuously leaking. That, and for some weird reason, he loves to beat the shit out of people with a shovel. That's sort of his thing, and they show him initially as a guy who's just shaking down people for money, but eventually he needs to get a tribute from Giorno. He needs his money. And that leads us to Giorno meeting Koichi for the very first time. When Koichi actually arrives in Italy, he's immediately confronted by Giorno, who he sees is actually paying off some cops, and Giorno desperately wants to be able to take this guy into the city, not because he can just drive him there for a good price, but so that he can steal his luggage and presumably all of the money that he has on hand. A nice little detail which I think is really funny about Koichi actually appearing in the series is that according to Giorno, he speaks perfect Italian, and that's of course because of Rohan. All Rohan has to do is write in his book that Koichi has the ability to speak Italian, and boom, he can do it. It's a nice little detail, and I think that fans of Diamond is Unbreakable are really going to love that scene a lot. But of course, Giorno just does all of this so he can steal Koichi's luggage, and he actually does this in his great scene where he tries to drive away with his suitcase, but of course Koichi actually uses his stand in a very badass moment, I have to say, where he brings out Echoes, who manages to stop him in the middle of the street, and this is when we're introduced to Giorno's abilities for real for the very first time. Basically, Koichi gives him the option. Look, we could fight, I don't want to do that. If you just give me my luggage, everything's going to be cool. So Giorno decides to leave, when suddenly his luggage is just completely gone, and the only thing that's left in his place is this weird little egg-like ball, which suddenly transforms into a tree frog, and then just starts to jump away. Koichi is, of course, confused as fuck as we would all be, but this is basically Giorno's special ability. He transformed his luggage into a frog, and eventually that frog is just going to come back to him, transform back into the luggage, and it looks like Giorno is going to be a little richer. However, before that can go down, he's confronted by Leaky-Eyed Luca, who decides to intimidate him with his shovel, demanding some money for him and his boss, when suddenly this frog appears from out of nowhere, jumping on his body, which for some reason absolutely pisses off Leaky-Eyed Luca. One, he doesn't like being told what to do, and if he tells someone to do something, they better freaking do it, or they're going to get the shovel to the face. What I love is how Giorno sort of plays off the fact that if this frog gets attacked, it's just going to be an animal that's being hurt. But in a way, he's actually trying to bait Leaky-Eyed Luca into attacking him, and that's exactly what he does by swinging his shovel directly into his chest. This is where we learn about the other special ability of Giorno. Not only can he transform objects into living creatures, but when they're attacked, that damage goes back to them. And when he attacks this frog, not only does it not hurt it at all, but you get to see there is this like giant just lump in his head. Not even a lump, it looks like a portion of his head has basically just been shoveled right out. The episode comes to a pretty swift end with Koichi actually discussing with Jotaro about the fact that this guy could very well be the son of Dio. It's almost a certainty at this point, and that's why his hair went from black to blonde, something to do with those crazy vampire genes. But the episode ends with Giorno looking like he's going to be making a pretty good escape with a lot of money, when suddenly he's confronted by another character who could only exist in a JoJo's series. I mean, when you look at this character, you're like, yep, that's a JoJo character. This guy goes by the name of Bruno Bucciarati, and he also is from the same gang as Leaky Eye Luca. In fact, he's confronting Giorno because he's convinced that he's the one who attacked him, and he goes through a lot of really ridiculous and over-the-top interrogation tactics of trying to see if he's going to sweat or not, or even doing creepy things like licking him on the face, because that's what these characters do. And this is when Bruno discovers that Giorno is actually the one who did beat the crap out of Leaky Eye Luca, and a big stand confrontation ensues. And it's not like the typical ones that we've seen from the previous series where the fists start flying. If there's one thing that Diamond is Unbreakable did right, it's that the creativity of the stands just went through the roof. And in this scene right here, describing it is almost impossible, but apparently Bruno has the ability to open up portal zippers on people's bodies or just about anywhere, and he can insert objects in there, kind of like a pocket space dimension. However, if he were to place something like, say, in your head, something that's a lot bigger than that, well, it could probably end up damaging it quite a bit. And the overall image of him actually utilizing his abilities and zippers appearing all over people's bodies is all sorts of freaky. So immediately Giorno is being attacked. He's witnessed 2 stand users in one day, and he now knows that he's probably going to be dragged into a crazy situation where he's going to be forced to use his ability, the Golden Wind, and just as you're getting excited, the episode ends. So what's the rundown on this episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Wind? It has been way too long since the last JoJo anime. Like I said, I think one of the best things about this series is just the sheer amount of creativity and style. There's nothing else like it. This is one of the most unique anime series that I have ever seen, and I love that with every single story arc, they manage to do something completely different and change the setting, yet it still manages to have that same JoJo style. And again, it's just as unpredictable as the rest of the series. If you don't read the manga version, this has got to be one of the craziest things that I think you could possibly ever see. It makes me glad that I do not read the manga, because I never know what's going to happen in this show, and being able to digest the entire JoJo's Bizarre Adventure series through anime format has been one of my favorite anime experiences overall, and I'm already so pumped for this one right here. First, I love the main character. Giorno is just such an interesting and fun main character when compared to the other previous ones. In fact, that might be one of the other biggest strengths of the show, is how a lot of the times they could almost do repeats with a lot of these characters in terms of their personality and motivation, but every single distinctive JoJo is just that, distinctive, and that combined with the whole Italian and mafia setting of this series immediately makes it awesome. That, and of course that he's the son of freaking Dio. That's a pretty big deal, especially because this basically makes it official that he is an official JoJo here. He even has the freaking mark on his neck. He came from the loins of Dio Brando, who's using the body of the original JoJo. Like, this all makes perfect sense, actually, as ridiculous and crazy as it actually all is. Really, I can't wait to see where this entire story is going to be going, how Jotaro and Koichi are going to factor into all of this. Is this going to be a more mafia-based story? I mean, it is going to be a crazy, bizarre adventure. That's what the show has always been about, but really the sky's the limit here for what they're doing. And again, just like the rest of JoJo, it's incredibly stylistic in the best way possible. What I've always really loved about the show is how the characters can be so incredibly badass and manly, but also just the most flamboyant looking motherfuckers I have ever seen. And they really run the gamut in this series. Like, in some ways that can kind of detract from the experience, because every single time one of these weirdo characters show up, you immediately know, oh yeah, they're a main character. They stick out like a freaking sore thumb, and they all have really great design. I don't know what it is about the creator of the series. He loves putting like hearts on people's chests and stuff. We see that a lot from Giorno and from freaking Bruno. Bruno's got a really crazy design. I love the fact that he's got these pins in his hair that look like freaking the very first form of Cell's crotch. But his overall ability was absolutely vile in the way that it was actually portrayed in this episode by actually, like, placing an eyeball in Giorno's hands, which is actually the eyeball of leaky-eyed Luca, who ended up getting killed by his boss off-screen. He even made him spit up his cut-off fingers that came out of his mouth. It's in that moment that I was like, yeah, this is definitely a JoJo's series. It's action-packed, it's flamboyant, it's hilarious, and of course, it's needlessly violent. It's just amazing, and I'm glad that it has finally returned, and it's got such a unique flavor this season. I cannot wait to experience the rest of this show. What I'm really trying to say is that this was not only a return to form for the series, but it's also just got me really excited to see what they're actually going to do with this story. And if you were just begging for some more JoJo, well, here it is. Let's get ready to eat it up. It's awesome. This episode was great, stylistic, action-packed, really funny at times, super violent, amazingly creative, and just dripping with JoJo style. It's a 5 out of 5 from me. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts about this episode in the comment section below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you have any favorite moments. Are you guys manga and anime fans? Do you just read the manga? Do you just watch the anime? What do you hope to see from the rest of Golden Wind? Let's get a discussion about this episode going down in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. JoJo is back. Make sure to look for all of the reviews on my channel, as well as tons of other animes that are going on this season. This is going to be the most jam-packed anime season ever, guys. I'm so pumped for this one, so make sure to stay tuned for the channel. Share these videos with all your friends. I'll see you all next time, and as always, stay down there, baby.